our guys wear those different colored uniforms at quarterbacks in practice. May need to wear them 24/7, but keep people away. But I think it's a new world for all of us. We're all having to learn a new way of doing things and adjust. Definitely, we'll be very conscious in practice of the space and the distance when we're in drills, and guys don't need to be just standing right together and up on each other. I think the other thing is, we've had 2 weeks of the walkthroughs where we've been able to practice in the walkthroughs, guys that are kind of watching and observing, staying distant, staying spaced out. So we've already been coaching that very hard. We'll have to continue to do it, and I think it'll be, like anything, a learning process on the best way to make sure we keep our guys safe. So that'll definitely be a big part of how we practice.
Coach, we have Barry Jackson from the Miami Herald. Barry, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee.
Hi, Coach. Just to take that a step further, do you want your quarterbacks ever in the same room this year for a meeting, or will you encourage them not to spend time together outside of the field and to have Zoom meetings? And then also wanted to ask you whether Isaiah Walker will be available to play this season.
With Isaiah, I think we're just that's a good question for Coach Diaz, and that's something we'll just go through that process. We fully would love to have him, and are excited he's here with us. In terms of the quarterbacks, look, we're going to make all the necessary changes we need to do to how we meet, how we walk through, how we practice. At the same time, we're going to play football season, and so when we meet, our guys are never within 6 feet of each other. They've got masks on in the meeting. They're spread out. So there's never going to be a contact issue the way we meet, the way we walk through, the way we do things. And we're certainly going to, that'll be kind of a daily thing of, are we doing everything we can to make sure our guys are safe? It's a great question because of quarterbacks. And if we ever got to that point, I would prefer to probably have, 2 separate meetings going on. I got a guy in Johnny Brewer, who's one of our analysts. And we got some good GAs that I think are good coaches that could maybe help us out. But right now we have a small enough number. We can get in a big enough room and space out for quarterbacks. So that helps.
Great. Coach, we have Matt Shodell from canesport.com. Matt, if you have a question for Coach Lashlee.
Well, hey, Coach, thanks for doing this. I didn't even take an ad for LaCroix. So I want to ask you, fall drills obviously start tomorrow. Can you share with us maybe who will start out day one as the first team left and right tackles? And regardless if you are willing to share that or not, can you also talk about the offensive line group in general, the progress maybe that you've seen in the walkthroughs and sort of how they've progressed over the last few weeks and months?
Yeah, I think we're going to kind of shuffle those guys the first couple of days early. Coach Justice has a good plan for that. I mean, I think one of the positives, we have some long athletic options at tackle. When you look at, John Campbell, Zion Nelson, you look at Jared Williams and Kai Herbert. I mean, Zalante Hillary could play both outside and inside. So Isaiah Walker, that addition. I mean, we've got some guys that can play outside. And so I think it's all really us finding out who's comfortable on the right and the left side. I think the left tackle thing's a little bit overrated. It is our quarterback's blind spot, but both tackles are pretty important. So I think that'll be something, though. I've said before, we've got basically 9 days of practice till school starts that we're going to have to make some pretty quick decisions after that point and get ready to play. So I think we'll know pretty quickly. I have been very pleased with the O-line, and I think they've been just the way they've kind of done the voluntary workouts over the summer. They've really kind of grown together and become a pretty tight unit. I think those guys have been working really hard and showing good leadership.
Coach, we have David Wilson from the Miami Herald. David, if you have a question for Coach Lashlee.
Hey, Coach. Offensive line, we were talking about this with Manny, is obviously the position where it's basically impossible to social distance. The guys are obviously in contact, standing next to each other a lot. Once, obviously, early in practice, you're going to mix and match guys, but does the worry that you might lose a whole offensive line at some point, does that make it harder to mix and match, like once you're kind of into the season and kind of know who that group of 5 is?
I totally don't know. I think it's going to be a learning process. The guidelines from the CDC and that we're given from our medical staff kind of change week to week a little bit. I'm sure Coach has shared with y'all. We've done some studies, and on practice days, our guys are never within 6 feet of each other for 15 minutes in entire practice. So if it's still based on 6 feet in time, our guys are spaced out pretty well. Now, there are a lot of 4 to 6 second spots where they're in close proximity, but the good thing about O-linemen, they're never face-to-face. They're side-by-side, and I know face-to-face is a little bit different than side-by-side. So we're gonna adhere to whatever rules we're given, and if we have to get creative, we certainly will. And like I said, I think it's just going to be day to day, both with us and learning what works and what doesn't. But I know this, Coach Diaz and our medical staff have done a phenomenal job of doing everything we can to make sure our guys are safe and comfortable, and our guys feel safe and comfortable.
Great. Coach, we have David Lake from 24/7 Sports. David, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee.
Hey, Coach, wanted to ask you, I guess, this kind of walkthrough period of the last 2 weeks, obviously missing the spring wasn't ideal for you guys with installing the new offense, but was the walkthrough period that you guys have just gone through, was it valuable? Do you feel like you kind of gained some ground during this time, the walkthrough time, I guess?
Yeah, it was very valuable for us. I don't know if we gained any ground because everybody else was kind of able to do the same thing, but it certainly helped, to your point that, we only got 4 of our 15 practices in the spring. It definitely helped to get last week and this week to be able to kind of meet and walk through with the guys. And look, it's hard when you're in Zoom rooms. As y'all know, we're all in these boxes and you don't have even though we're staying distant physically and you don't have the quote physical touch, just being in person, it changes everything, the way kids react. I mean, kids are still kids, man. They need relationships. They need people to interact with. And so if we can do so distantly and safely, it's always better. And so I think more importantly, the thing we missed out more than anything was just time, getting to know the kids, them getting to know us, the relationship piece. So it really didn't matter what plays we were walking through, although that helps. I mean, it does matter to some degree, but just the fact that I think from a morale standpoint and a relationship standpoint, we were able to kind of get around our guys a little bit more than we had been for the last 4 or 5 months was big.
Coach, we've got time for a couple more questions. We'll go to Gary Furman at Kane Sport. Gary, if you have a question for Coach Lashlee.
Hey, Rhett, how are you? And I've enjoyed your stuff on TikTok. Good stuff. Obviously, so much fanfare, whatever you want to call it, about your arrival here at Miami and the introduction of the offense that you're going to bring forth this fall. From your experience in football, how big of a difference does a scheme make? We've done some stories this week. Dennis Erickson introduced the spread here, back, in the 1990s, and obviously was one of the fathers of the spread. And Miami won 2 national titles with it. How big of a difference does scheme make in offensive football?
Well, I think it could be answered 2 ways. To your point, I mean, Dennis Erickson had great success here, won 2 national championships, and I think to that extent, it probably has some ability to prove that may fit the style of players we recruit here to Miami. Certainly feel confident that it does fit our guys. But at the same time, scheme is scheme. It's more it's not as much what the coaches knows. It's what can we teach our kids, what can they know, and what can they execute at a high level. That's why you see some teams win with a spread system, some teams win with what people call a pro-style system, and some teams still win with a old school wishbone triple option. I think as long as you're good at something and have an identity, then you have a chance to be successful on offense. So I think the scheme does matter. I think some schemes, especially nowadays with what high schools run, fit kids more. I think that's why you see the NFL evolving to more what colleges do, because they're getting their players from college just like we get our players from high school. It makes sense. I certainly feel good about our scheme fitting the South Florida kids down here that we recruit and the kids on our team. But you can win with different schemes as long as you coach it and you build the confidence in the players because they know what to do and they can execute it at a high level. So I think, like I said, it could go either way. I do feel like it's a good fit here, though.